A stranger riding into town isn't always hope. Sometimes he's a crack in the quiet agreement everyone pretends not to see. In Cinder Fork, folks knew the rule like scripture: stranger equals trouble. Because order here wasn't kept by law. It was kept by fear. And fear belonged to the Mercer Gang. Near sundown, a lone horse pushed through the dust. On its back rode a man with years carved into his face and a life's weight on his shoulders. Under the shadow of his hat, his eyes were dark, but one thing inside them stayed sharp: a tired conscience. His name was Gideon Rourke. Out here, people shortened it to Rook. When his horse's hooves hit the main street, curtains trembled, doors half closed, children were pulled back, men's hands drifted toward their belts. Because in Cinder Fork, every stare asked the same question: what is this man going to cost us? The town's rule. Rook swung down and left the reins loose. Even the way a man leaves his horse says something about what he came to do. Inside the saloon, laughter bubbled up, then died the instant he stepped through the door. The air cooled. The barman looked at him like he wasn't seeing a customer. He was seeing a problem. Still, he set a mug down. Rook didn't sit. He stayed standing and took a slow drink. The coffee was bitter, but the bitterest thing in the room was the sign nailed to the wall: Mercer. Rule. Don't ask. Don't look. Don't get involved. Rook's eyes moved off the sign and swept the room, one face at a time, like he was searching for something. Like he was searching for his past. Two men in the back wore clean boots and new leather, but their eyes were dirty. One muttered, "Mercer's man." The other answered, "Sheriff's Mercer too." Rook set his mug down. "Where's the sheriff?" he asked. The barman swallowed. "Sheriff Daltrey lives in Mercer's shadow." Rook didn't blink. "Who owns this town?" The barman lowered his voice. "Royce Mercer." The name hung in the air like smoke. Something flickered behind Rook's eyes, a memory hissing against hot iron. The woman. Then the back door opened. First came a footstep, then a silence. Every head turned. A woman walked out, hair pinned back, face pale, thin bruising around her wrist. She wore a dress that looked clean, but not like it belonged to her, not like she chose it. She crossed to the small stage. The piano player's hand trembled, and the woman began to sing. Her voice carried a crack that wasn't acting. It was a scream buried so deep it learned to breathe quietly. Rook watched her the way no one else dared to, because in this town, everyone had sworn not to see. But Rook saw. Her name drifted through whispers. Nora Kells. Someone snickered. Mercer's flower. Someone else spat. Pays her debt the easy way. Rook's coffee went cold, but something in his chest heated up. Nora finished her song. No one clapped. They just stared like they were waiting for the next piece of her. Rook took one step forward. Nora met his eyes, and in that look, something flashed. Not fear. Fear ends somewhere. This was worse. This was exhaustion. Stranger equals trouble. When Rook stepped back out onto the street, two men drifted after him. They didn't walk like they wanted to talk. They walked like they wanted to remind him where he was. One came too close to his shoulder. "You're a stranger." Rook kept walking. The other laughed. Out here, stranger means trouble. Rook finally turned his head. His eyes were calm, his voice calmer. "You folks like trouble?" The men hesitated, because Rook's tone didn't carry a fight. It carried something worse. Experience. "This is Mercer's town," one said. "You follow the rule." Rook didn't step closer. "I didn't come for the rule," he said. "I came for coffee." They tried to laugh, but it came out thin, because Rook's joke wasn't really a joke. He walked on. Then, down an alley, a door slammed. A woman's voice slipped through, small but sharp enough to cut. "No, please." Rook stopped. The town pretended it didn't hear. No one looked. No one moved. But Rook heard. The shape of evil. Rook followed the sound. A man stood watch at the door. On his shirt collar, a small badge, Mercer Gang. The guard looked Rook up and down. "What business you got here?" Rook took one slow step. "Got lost," he said. The guard chuckled. "In this town, people who get lost don't get found." Rook's gaze dropped from the badge to the man's hand. A ring. An etched mark. 2 lines crossed like an M. Rook knew that ring. Years ago, back when he ran with the wrong kind of men, people wearing that ring used to give him work. Something opened up inside Rook like an old door swinging wide. Mercer. The same Mercer. This town wasn't just bad men. It was a system. A machine. Rook stepped back. He didn't pick the fight right there, because Rook knew how to fight. But if he wanted Nora alive, he needed a plan. Nora's husband night fell, and Cinder Fork grew smaller and sharper. Rook walked to the little graveyard behind the church, because every town hides its truth in the dirt. He read headstones, names, dates, short lives. Then he stopped. Caleb Kells, beloved husband, gone too soon. Rook's breath turned heavy, because that name lived in the list he never forgot. Caleb Kells. One night, one road, one job. Rook had pulled the trigger, not for justice, not for honor, for money, for an order. Stop him. And Caleb Kells had stopped. Forever. Rook knelt by the stone and laid his hand on it. He started. But no word came, because some apologies arrive so late. They don't deserve air. Rook stood, and made a decision that tasted like iron. If one person walked out of this town alive tonight, if it was Nora, then Rook would do it not to be good, but to pay a debt he'd been running from. Her debt. Near midnight, Rook circled behind the saloon again. Through a side window he saw it. Nora in a small room. A guard at the door. Inside, muffled voices. A choked sob, and then the sound of a slap. Something lowered over Rook's eyes. Not mercy. A count. He stepped forward, then stopped. Kicking in the door was easy. Getting Nora out alive was the hard part. Rook moved behind stacked firewood. A water bucket, a coffee pot, a heavy iron ladle. The pot still held hot coffee. He breathed in the bitter smell. In this town, he murmured, even coffee's a weapon. The rescue Rook didn't touch the door. He studied the window latch. Old, tired, like the town. He didn't break it. He slid a thin piece of metal in, an old skill from an old life, and used it for something right. The latch clicked. Rook slipped inside. The guard turned, too late. Rook didn't throw the pot at the man's face. He slammed it into the man's shoulder. Heat, pain, a choking yelp. The man dropped. Rook didn't kill him. He just shut him up. Nora was frozen in the corner, eyes wide, breath caught. Rook lifted one hand. Quiet, he said. I'm getting you out. Nora's voice shook. Mercer will kill you. Rook's answer came steady. I was already dead. Nora tried to stand. Her knees gave a little. Rook grabbed a blanket and wrapped it over her shoulders. She stared at him. Who are you? Rook hesitated. Names don't always save people. Sometimes they wound. Just a stranger, he said. And strangers sometimes bring trouble. The sheriff Rook guided Nora through the back alley. Before they reached the street, a voice cut in. Stop. Sheriff Daltrey stood there with a lantern in his hand and a gun on his hip. His face carried borrowed authority. His eyes went to Nora, then Rook. Where you taking her? Daltrey asked. Rook slid Nora behind him. To freedom. Daltrey laughed. Freedom in this town comes with Mercer's signature. Rook's eyes narrowed. Where is Mercer? Daltrey shrugged. Comes at sunrise, takes his girl back. Rook's voice sharpened. Not his girl, he said. You mean his slave. Daltrey stepped forward. Watch your mouth, stranger. Rook's voice dropped low and heavy. I am. You're the one who hasn't been watching. Then Nora spoke. For the first time, her voice carried not fear, but fury. When my husband died, Mercer's men came to my house. They said debt. They said papers. Then they brought me here, and you... She pointed at the sheriff. Opened the door. Daltrey went still, because people don't say truth out loud in Cinder Fork. Rook moved one step closer to Daltrey. You got two choices, he said. Act like that badge means something, or one day, this town will spit on your grave. Mercer arrives. Hooves sounded in the distance. More than one rider. Mercer. Royce Mercer didn't ride alone. He rode with his law. Guns, bought men, scared townsfolk. When he entered the street, it felt like even the moon backed away. Mercer saw Nora. He smiled. "Knew you were here," he said. "Didn't think Det could walk." Rook stepped forward. "That's not Det," he said. "That's a person." Mercer's eyes slid onto Rook's face and caught something familiar. "You," Mercer said slowly. "I remember you." Rook felt ice in his gut. Being remembered by Mercer was like being marked. Mercer's grin widened. "Looks like you brought trouble into my town." Rook answered, flat. "Your town was already trouble." Mercer nodded to his men. Guns lifted. Daltrey's hand trembled. On one side, Mercer. On the other, a stranger who somehow made right feel possible. Rook leaned close to Nora and whispered one word, "Run." Nora hesitated. "What about you?" Rook's voice stayed calm. "I've got a debt that's overdue." Reckoning Rook didn't shoot first, because he didn't want a gunfight. He wanted an escape. Nora bolted down the back lane. Mercer barked, "Get her." Two men started after her, and Rook kicked Daltrey's lantern. It hit the ground. Oil spread. Flame flared. Smoke rose. Sight broke. Rook used the smoke like he'd used darkness his whole life. Only this time, for someone else. A gun cracked. The bullet shaved the brim of Rook's hat. That was when he drew. He shot a pistol clean out of one man's hand, then fired low near the other man's knee, dropping him without killing him. Mercer stepped back. He turned on Daltrey. "Shoot him." Daltrey's hand shook. Rook faced Daltrey. "If you do it," he said, "you're not wearing a badge anymore. You're wearing a chain." Daltrey's eyes flicked toward the alley where Nora ran, then back to Mercer, and for the first time, the sheriff made a decision that belonged to him. He pointed his gun at Mercer. Mercer's smile cracked. "What are you doing?" Daltrey's voice broke. "I've been wrong for too long." Mercer snarled. "I made you." Daltrey whispered, "Maybe." Then louder, "But I'm the one ending this." The truth Rook swallows. Rook caught up to Nora by the barn. A spare horse stood tied, one of Mercer's men. Rook shoved the reins into Nora's hands. "Get on." Nora climbed up trembling, then looked down at him. "Aren't you coming?" Rook stopped. The truth rose to his throat like blood. "I killed your husband," but saying it now wouldn't free her. It would cage her again, only this time with grief. So Rook swallowed it. "Ride west," he said, "past the dry creek, then left at the split. Be there before dawn." Nora squinted. "Do you know me?" Rook's voice softened. "I know I should have known you sooner." She opened her mouth. Rook lifted a hand. "Go." Nora kicked the horse forward and disappeared into the dark, trailing dust like a thin line of hope. Rook turned back, because his work wasn't finished. Mercer kept a debt ledger. That book was the cage. Rook shoved into the land office and found it on the desk. He flipped pages, and there it was. Nora Kells. Debt closed, death. Caleb Kells. Debt closed, death. Rook's hand trembled, because he was the reason one of those lines existed. He fed the ledger into the stove. Pages curled, blackened, turned to ash. Ash sometimes cleans. Sometimes it just hides the truth. Rook stepped back out. Mercer's shouting echoed somewhere in town, but Nora wasn't in that sound anymore. Dawn came as a thin line on the horizon. Rook rode out past the last fence and reached the split. In the distance, he saw Nora's silhouette, alive. He didn't ride up to her. Some rescuers don't get close to the ones they save. They're afraid their sin might touch them. Rook adjusted his hat and turned his horse toward the rising light. Dust rose behind him. The road stretched wide, and the prairies seemed to whisper the truth the Cinder Fork lived by. Stranger equals trouble. But sometimes, trouble is the only thing that breaks a town's favorite kind of evil, the kind everyone got used to. If you want more stories like this, subscribe and drop a comment, and thank you for watching.